Get ready to clean, silo dwellers, because we have answers to some of your most burning questions. If you're like me, you finished the Season 2 finale of Silo with about 1 billion questions. So why can't we ask about that stuff? With Silo being renewed for a 3rd and 4th season, I'm over here like, I want answers. I need answers. From that crazy flashback to the return of Juliette to Silo 18, including the shocking reveal that Solo's mother is still alive, there's a lot to talk about. If you're new to my videos, this is a non-book spoiler deep dive that relies only on Silo to guess what might happen next. For those of you who've read the books, you can just make fun of me for everything I get wrong. Also, if you're looking for another amazing mystery show on Apple, I'm covering Severance Season 2, so make sure you're subscribed for that. Now, let's dive into it. Let's start with the flashback's big reveal, multiple silos. Season 2 drops a dirty bomb of its own with the suggestion that we might be going back in time to see how and why the silos were built. We meet 2 individuals who I believe might play a major role in Season 3. This is partly because of the amount of setup the writers do with these characters. The first character, actually unnamed in the subtitles, is simply referred to as Congressman. He represents Georgia's 15th district, which is interesting because as of 2024, Georgia only has 14 districts. So how can he be a congressman for a non-existent district? While they could have made this up for the show, I think this hints that we're somewhere in the near future, maybe 2030 or 2035, when Georgia's population has grown enough to warrant a new district. He's also referred to as a freshman congressman. The only other clue suggesting we're in the near future is this sophisticated Geiger counter, likely being used to check if someone has radioactive particles on them, much like the dirty bomb we'll hear about. This bomb was allegedly detonated by Iran, but we don't know how much impact it had. Washington, D.C., where the attack happened, seems to be on high alert. Helen, our second character and a reporter for a magazine called The Post, questions whether there really was a radiological attack. Silo has always been about hiding the truth, so while it said Iran set off this bomb, that may not be the case. It's more likely a false flag operation for something more sinister. Perhaps the U.S. itself was involved. The Geiger counter may even be programmed to always flash red, as we hear the congressman ask, "Does it ever flash red?" To which he answers, "Not really." It's also interesting that the congressman represents Georgia, since nods to Georgia have been scattered throughout Seasons 1 and 2. From the Amazing Adventures in Georgia book to the song Moon River from 2011, which is all about lyricist Johnny Mercer's childhood growing up in Savannah. Furthermore, the author of Silo, Hugh Howey, grew up in Georgia. I think this is where the silos were built, and I don't think this is the last time we'll see Helen and this congressman. If she wasn't interested in him, she would have discarded that Duck Pez dispenser as soon as she left. Remember, when the congressman first shows up, he thought it was a date. He claims he picked up the dispenser on a whim, but he actually put some effort into getting to know her. The duck is the official mascot of the University of Oregon, where she went to school. I think these two will get together, and she'll keep the Pez dispenser as a memento from when they first met. He invites her to Georgia, where he is pivotal in the creation of the silos. Remember, he has a master's in engineering. Combine this with his position as a congressman, and maybe he helped design or fund this massive project. Then, some sort of attack happens, and both he and Helen are forced to be among the first silo dwellers, which explains how the Pez dispenser ends up in the silo. The current holder of the Pez dispenser is Sim's son, Anthony, who found it after it traveled from Georgia with Juliette. Another detail worth mentioning is the congressman bragging about his work in New Orleans. Since he has a master's in engineering and worked in the Army Corps of Engineers, I'm guessing this involved the levees or preventing flooding during a hurricane. This would make him a good candidate for building the silos, especially if he has a proven track record with disaster management. Helen also tells the congressman that the people deserve to know if there are plans to strike back at Iran. If this is indeed a false flag attack designed to blame Iran, it suggests there's a larger power at play pushing for an attack on Iran. But how we transition from this point in time to the post-apocalyptic wasteland several hundred years later is still a mystery. However, I think that's what Season 3 will uncover. Season 2 had 2 separate storylines in 2 unique storehouses, however I accept Season 3 will zero in on one primary storyline that happens previously, close by Juliette and the others back in Storehouse 18. Talking about Juliette, it's taken her a whole season to get back to Storehouse 18 trying to save her kin. On the off chance that she hadn't arrived in time, they would have opened the vault entryways and passed on from the noxious gas. The outside world was protected before Juliette's dad bravely forfeited himself to remove Bernard's thieves from the remainder of the storehouse. Juliette in Storehouse reveals something many refer to as the Shield. This was first referenced in Salvador Quinn's translated code in episode 209. As per Quinn, the Protect was made by the originators, and in the finale, we get somewhat more data on what this is, a line on floor 14 that can siphon sufficient toxin gas to kill everybody in the storehouse. All in all, who controls this Protect? Toward the finish of episode 209, the baffling voice known as the Calculation says it should start the Shield should Lucas let anybody know what he saw or heard at the lower part of the storehouse. The Calculation likewise utilizes the expression we, recommending it very well may be various individuals, PCs, or something totally different. Regardless, it appears to have innovation further developed than what we have today. Take, for instance, the time the Calculation had some awareness of the Down Deep's promulgation rocket involving surveillance camera filmed progressively. It had the option to perceive a danger and tell Bernard. Presently we simply need to ask ourselves, is the Calculation a super high-level PC run by people, its own substance completely, or perhaps a blend of both? In episode 209, Bernard makes reference to a mysterious 51st storehouse, one that might be unique in relation to the rest. I conjecture this is the operational hub for the wide range of various storehouses. It's where the toxic substance begins and where the external power siphons into it. Bernard additionally utilizes the plural structure while discussing those in charge of the defend, persuading me to think there is some type of human contingent affecting everything here. Storehouse lets us know that his folks found out where the shield gas was being siphoned from floor 14. Floor 14 is where legal is found. Who's to say these gas vents aren't associated with this line? It's likewise on floor 14 that Storehouse and Juliette are going to research before they hear the blast from Juliette's storehouse. Storehouse recalls his folks saying they had the option to plug the line some way or another, however by then, it was past the point of no return. The dissidents had dominated, and the generator was overwhelmed. At any rate, to this end the sheriff says in episode 201, "I'm all dead." Significantly more fascinating is Storehouse expressing that when his kin initially headed outside, they didn't kick the bucket. That multitude of individuals headed outside, they didn't bite the dust. Not from the get-go. I interpret this as meaning that the gas can be set off outside too. All things considered, yet Storehouse's folks effectively halted it to some extent for a brief time. This leads me to Storehouse's mom. Storehouse makes reference to no less than 2 times, I could add, that he doesn't have the foggiest idea what befell her, which is code for she could in any case be alive. Unintentionally, she worked in legal on a similar floor where the protect pipe is found. It's absolutely conceivable she is as yet alive, having tracked down a way to the next organization of storehouses through this line. Notwithstanding, this would make her very old, and I think the more legitimate clarification is that Storehouse's mom kicked the bucket attempting to cover this gas. At the point when she passed on, the toxic substance gas overcame. This would make sense of why the gas didn't kill individuals from the start. This is an extraordinary plot highlight get in Season 3. Storehouse will without a doubt need to reveal what befell his mom, and I think we'll see more as he wanders into his mother's old working environment on level 14. Unfortunate Bernard's destiny, and what did Lucas murmur? Bernard went from thinking he effectively subdued the insubordination to understanding as long as he can remember depended on lies as well as an all-out disappointment. After all I've done, forfeited to figure out it never truly made a difference. No big surprise he decided to submit himself to the rest of the world after the endless passings that happened subject to his authority, including those he cherished most. Presently Bernard needed to shield it until the end, that is, until Lucas Kyle murmurs something into his ear. This is the kind of thing the calculation can't be aware. Lucas is letting him know something, as it would set off the shield. Anything he tells him is additionally the explanation. Matos and Lucas quit as Bernard's shadow, and at last why Bernard leaves and gives his post to Sims. The chief makes a significant note to get Ammon's response as Lucas converses with Bernard. Thus, you better accept Sims and Ammon will be on Lucas. All in all, Lucas advised Bernard that he didn't claim to know much about anything. It might have something to do with the shield's toxin and the acknowledgement that Bernard, whose whole life was based on controlling others, eventually has no control himself. It's none of your concern. It was never in your grasp. In my grasp. Anybody's hands. Lucas later lets Sims know that the vault key didn't become red since it's finished. The very individuals Bernard took orders from as long as he can remember will pass on him to kick the bucket alongside every other person, or if nothing else, that is what Lucas suggests on a few events. He discusses how basically nothing has any meaning and that it's past the point of no return, in any event, when he has a weapon pointed at him. This is a man who was informed something devastating planned to occur. I likewise need to say it was a decent turn of character to see him confront Sims when the greater part of his life he's been viewed as a weakling. Furthermore, presently, what's driven me here? What's driven me here is being a quitter. Bernard takes his uniquely planned head of IT suit and adventures out the sealed area to track down Juliette, despite the fact that she has a weapon pointed at him. The two are truly on a similar side. Juliette even lets him know that she might have sorted out a method for halting the protect. This probably has something to do with obstructing that line on floor 14. The entryway behind them abruptly closes, and I will generally think this was done naturally, yet we can't rest assured. Both she and Bernard become caught as the incinerator consumes. We've seen this back in Season 1, and any reasonable person would agree that Juliette makes do. Thinking of her as suit is produced using heat-proof material firemen wore in Storehouse 17. Be that as it may, the equivalent can't be said for Bernard. Since we don't really see him bite the dust, it's impossible to say whether he lives and is horrendously consumed or perishes. We likewise don't have the foggiest idea what amount of time it will require for the calculation to carry out the shield, should that be what's going on. Is this something that requires days to get ready? Or is it as basic as flipping a switch? The finish of Season 2 additionally leaves us with the obscure of what lies past the entryway at the lower part of the storehouse. As indicated by the calculation, just 4 individuals have at any point been permitted to enter: Salvador Quinn, Mary Glades, George Wilkins, and presently Lucas Kyle. I want to accept that what Lucas saw was a passage that associates every one of the storehouses together, or if nothing else to one principal storehouse that controls everything. It's here he would likewise learn of the shield and the toxin gas. He might have likewise discovered that their destiny isn't their own and that they are simply constrained by others, a disclosure that could have transformed Judge Glades into a drunkard who longed for the rest of the world, where she could be free. It's likewise sensibly speaking that the calculation, assuming it's high sufficiently level, could anticipate things that will occur in the storehouse. For instance, did the calculation had any idea about that the agitators could deceive Bernard? In any case, it made Lucas sort of abandon life, similar to nothing he does truly has much of any significance. The equivalent can't be said for Sims, who has completely skirted being a shadow and has been elevated straightforwardly to head of it, yet for how long, who can say for sure? Subsequent to being given the vault key, he brings his significant other Camille and child Anthony to the vault, just to be told to leave so the calculation can be abandoned with Camille. Sims says he will likely save the storehouse, and the calculation needs that as well, yet realizing the calculation will kill everybody in there, we can't trust it. Presently the inquiry is, what is it that the calculation need with Camille? Assuming there's one thing we are familiar her, it's that she's the one calling the shots on Sims. She spent the whole season going despite his good faith to additional her own plan, and not really that of the storehouses. For this reason I believe she's the ideal possibility for the calculation, who might have realized this by watching Camille her whole life. While Sims is tied in with putting the well-being of the storehouse first, Camille could mind less, as long as it progresses her situation and that of her loved ones. Maybe the calculation needs something from somebody in the storehouse to start the protect and guarantees Camille another existence with her family in the mysterious storehouse consequently. However, to do this, she should sell out the trust of her better half, who she guaranteed that she could at no point ever go despite his good faith in the future. No more mysteries. Now, did someone rip Juliette's suit here, or was it like that to begin with? If we look at the glimpse of the suit we get in Season 2, you can kind of make out some of the rips here, but this all ties into the fake out that Solo took her other suit. In reality, he was testing it for her to make sure it was airtight. This is actually an insanely kind gesture, because if you recall a few episodes ago, Solo was petrified of going into the water. But now, because Juliette came back to save his life, he's doing this as a gesture of love between the two. In fact, this is the first time the two embrace the entire season. In the next section, I want to talk about a few things that didn't necessarily fit into the sections I left in the timestamps. I love this poster of the figures holding hands in a circle. We've seen this all around the silo, but here, being in an eye, it gives that eerie connotation that we're constantly being watched. I like Shirley's explanations on how the engineers by the generator would use secret hand signals as a way to trick Bernard and convey information without being found. Pete's sacrifice and final speech was an emotional reminder of his love for his daughter. He gave his own life believing that she is still alive, and you better believe Juliette will be getting that watch back. And yes, I do think he is dead. With the silo's order seemingly in chaos, I'm assuming the pact is done with, which may allow for things like elevators to be used in the silo. It also begs the question, what new form of order will arise once Juliette gets in there and tells everyone what she knows? Season 2 has left us with tons of burning questions, and the next season is starting to focus on the bigger picture of who built these silos and why. But now I turn it over to you. What did you think of the season? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and do check out my videos on Severance. Thanks for watching, and for more hot takes. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.